Lily Tomlin stars with Steve Martin under the direction of Carl Reiner in the new romantic comedy, All of Me. 10 years ago, with her film debut in Nashville for Robert Altman, Lily Tomlin said she looked at the rushes on Nashville and felt relieved. She had thought I might not transfer on that medium, but I'm okay on the screen, she said. I have a certain amount of reality. That reality is a very important part of All of Me. And we'll be right back with Lily Tomlin and a scene from All of Me. Lily Tomlin,
yes,
with Steve Martin in a scene from All of Me, directed by Carl Reiner. As we were looking at that scene, you pointed out you were wearing at that moment a 30-carat ring.
Yes, I had that ring on my little finger. It was 30 carats that I had rented from a jeweler in Los Angeles. It was her own personal ring, and she let me have that in her jeweler's loop that I could look at stones with.
Was that part of the Barbara Hutton motivation in finding Edwina Tutwater?
It was for me, yes, it was. Because I'd read, and I'd talked to people who'd known Barbara Hutton, and they told me that she would literally spend hours and hours studying a single stone with a jeweler's loop. And I could see the fascination, you know, especially if you were a person who was a bit reclusive, and she did a lot of her living in bed anyway, as Edwina does, so I thought I would use that as part of my life.
Wasn't there also a fascination for you, Lily, privately, because you've never been...
rich?
I would hope at this point we could dismiss that and say more comfortable than you've ever been in your life.
Okay.
But that you had never had fascination with jewelry. You're not a person who wears jewelry.
No, I don't have any jewelry. I have a watch, but I left it at home. I have a simple wristwatch, and I do use that because I'm like an organized person. But
what happens though after the clothes?
Yes.
And the jewelry? Is there a new awareness of what they do to the human being wearing them? Beyond what you may have learned about Barbara Hutton, what did you learn about Lily Tomlin?
Well, I did learn to appreciate the beauty of those stones and of jewels. You know, I went to a lot of jewelers and tried on some magnificent. I think what do they call? They have a name. Are they called? No, what are they called? A set is called a pave, is it?
I'm not sure.
Or is that a kind of stone set? Anyway, no, that's a setting, I think. There's a name for, you know, a necklace, earrings, a bracelet, and all that has a name, and not unlike, you know, in my family used to call a bedroom suit, you know. But this is some arrangement of jewelry. It has a name, and I tell you, it was a bit. I was a bit surprised at how attracted I was to having a really extraordinarily beautiful jewel around my neck or on my ears, you know. I never thought I would. I didn't buy any, as you can see. They were quite expensive. First of all, that could be the reason. But
did you really chip in with your producer to pay for the rental, loan, or security guards?
I'm still trying. I had no idea he had this point of view. I'm still trying to collect. Yeah.
Now, why would you tell me?
So I was so surprised to read in the paper that I was chipping in.
Well, maybe it's coming off your part of the box office
receipts. We have an unusual producer anyway. He also thought Steve and I would like chip in on the poster.
Yes, when do you find out how they get delivered to the theaters during the personal appearances?
It's pretty good. I'm laughing because I'm self-conscious that my, you know, bubble gums are showing.
Oh, you've been reading your press, haven't
Yes,
you?
I have.
Why would you read your press and be self-conscious about anything at this point in your life?
Oh, I'm not. I was just like making like a regional reference.
I want to add something to your saying that you were pleased about how attractive you felt you were as Edwina with the silk nightgown or the jewelry or being in that extraordinary bedroom. But that doesn't surprise me from the woman who could lay herself across her mother's dresser and look in the mirror knowing she was the prettiest girl in town. I
did do that. When the story you're referring to is when I was about 9 years old and I had a two-piece bathing suit. And you know, as I look back on it, I think I mean, I always denied that I ever had any ambitions or visions about being in show business or being a movie star, you know. But as a child, I did do all these things that would seem to be the contrary, and that is, first of all, I learned to pin curl my hair when I was very young because I wanted big fluffy hair, you know, and I always had pigtails, but I made my mother teach me how to make pin curls, And it took me a long time before I could get them all going in the right direction. But finally, when I did, I'd always have real fluffy hair. And here I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I'd set my hair before I went to school at night in big old pin curls and put a babushka on it. But then I had a two-piece bathing suit, and we didn't have a full-length mirror in the house, but my mother had an old lime oak dresser, you know, a double dresser, as they say, and it had a horizontal mirror over it. So I'd put on that two-piece bathing suit and pin curl my hair and get it quite fluffy, and then I could lie horizontally on the dresser and in a bathing beauty pose.
And then go to bed hoping you'd wake up with the fullness of Esther Williams around the hips.
That's true. I did. But then I was acculturated in the States.
Hold it. Detroit is very close to Windsor, and across the bridge we were all living the same lives, Lily.
I know you were. You didn't dress quite as well, but I did go over there and no, I'm just kidding. I mean, they have Hudson's in Windsor. They had Hudson's in downtown Detroit, which is now renovated or demolished or something.
Do you know one of the remarks? We must find out what's apocryphal, but your remark.
I don't think I'll ever get over the remark I just made about Windsor.
Why?
I'll never play the Elmwood Casino. I can just see that now. Things are not going to work out for me.
Fine, then avoid the bridge and go back to Hamilton Place.
Okay.
Better yet, come back to the Royal Alexandra Theatre.
I'd like to do that.
It's been a long time. I'm glad you're headed back to Broadway, because maybe that means you'll stop along the way.
Oh, I would. Oh, actually, I'd try. Actually, I wouldn't stop along the way. I would make sure it was good before I came here. You know, I'd go there, and then I'll come here, and then I'll say. They'd
let you back into Windsor after a remark like that.
Would they?
Sure they would.
I used to go to Point Pelee all the time in the summer. You know Point Pelee?
I know where it is, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about Point Pelee other than we'll take a commercial break and be right back, okay?
All right.
Be right back with Lily Tomlin. Lily Tomlin is with us, and we've been talking about film. I just made a comment because I had referred to Robert Benton. And in the voiceover, I had made a comment about you working with Robert Altman in Nashville and your own awareness of looking at rushes and saying, there is reality. But The Late Show, along with your Academy Award nomination, which has happened, it's amazing because the first time you appeared on film, you got a nomination. What do awards mean to you at this point? When I think of all the awards you have, including your Antoinette Perry Tony Award, is there a point at which the artist just works and all of that is gravy time? Do they mean anything to you?
Well, it's hard to say. I really don't know myself what they mean. I think it means much more at the moment of getting one than the moment of not getting one. You know, and someone else said this. I think maybe Shirley MacLaine said this. You have a certain relief when you don't get it that you don't have to go up. You know. But it's fun to get them in a certain way, and then and it's a real exhilaration for about 20 hours, because you are sort of terribly it's like a galvanic shock goes through you in the audience when you finally hear your name, because you don't hear it right away. There's like a little lapse of the synapses or something, and then but here's how I really look at it. To me, it's because it's such a big cultural institution or ritual to go to like the Oscars, and certainly the Oscars, and then the Emmys and everything a little bit less than that. But this year Ernestine is nominated for an Emmy, so I'm more excited about that because Ernestine's going to go to the Emmys. You know, whether she wins, but I mean, nobody will be a poorer loser or a more arrogant winner than Ernestine. Now, she's the kind of person that will really enjoy the awards.
Where'd she get her dress?
Well,
was it made for her?
Rhett Turner, who's a designer in Hollywood, he owes her. Almost everybody owes her, so even though she still has a day job as a switchboard operator, there's very little that she can't lay her hands on when she needs it.
I think it's important to know that you said about her, she is the kind of woman who, unlike you, would play Las Vegas. So if she gets the Emmy, it'll probably double her price. Dolly Parton will lose a few bookings.
Well, Ernestine is working on her act right now. So, but she's more born to, the kind of luster of show business than even I ever was.
Having said that, why, when the right parties were approached by Bell Telephone, did you decline a $500,000 offer to do a commercial involving Ernestine? Wouldn't it have been easy money?
Well, especially then it would have, because that was about 13 or 14 years ago, and I just started on Laugh-In. But at that time, particularly, it was, you know, I was pretty, not that I'm not still somewhat idealistic, but I was really idealistic then, and more than anything, I was terribly insulted that they thought I would even consider such a thing. You know, here I was doing this, this character. It was just an inflated idea of you know, and a possessiveness about what you do, and I'm doing this telephone operator on Laugh-In, and somehow I think I'm making, you know, trenchant comment, and all the time I'm really just doing great PR for the phone company, and to the extent that they would like to co-opt it, and you know, and in another part of me now, the more mature, compassionate part of me understands it would have been great, you know, at least it'd be entertaining to the public at that time. They could have had, they loved Ernestine so much, or a good part of them did, that they could have had the pleasure of seeing her on TV frequently. But no, not me, not highfalutin me.
When you made the remark you did about, I think a couple of nights before principal photography began on 9 to 5, and you and Jane Fonda and Dolly Parton went out for the evening.
Yes.
And you said to them, I feel like the kid from Detroit who won the contest. What am I doing here with you?
Right.
And you are working with Carl Reiner, whose contribution to American comedy and whose perseverance in American broadcasting, from writer to actor to director, and for Carl Reiner to say that he always felt the people who made people movies were directors who had been actors or failed actors who were always closet directors. Is there a sense of Jane and Dolly, and then Lily with Carl Reiner, the Carl Reiner, and an acquaintance like Steve Martin with whom you had worked before? So the same fun, the same feeling of winning the contest?
Oh, it was, yeah, it was a great deal of fun. Now that's a whole other, it's another thing with Carl, because I knew Carl all my life from Show of Shows. I mean, as a young, pardon me, Carl, but as a mere child, I would watch Carl on Show of Shows, you know, and I was greatly influenced by that show. And so then you have to put Carl in it's like, it's going to sound strange when I say that, but this is the association that comes to my mind. Dolly and Jane were more, you know, like pop of my moment or something, you know, and Carl is more like a part of the life and history of, and although he's still terribly present, but it's like seeing, when you see you know, someone on the screen, I started to say Ingrid Bergman. When you see Hepburn or Bergman or any person who's really been a part of your life, I mean, it's just it's a kind of deeper resonance. It's like, it quickens you, you know? And so the idea that when I was 9 or 10 years old and I would watch Show of Shows, and then I would steal all their material and do their sketches in my garage or in the back porch, it's another meaning to your life. It's a larger, going out with Jane and Dolly is like, because they were such present pop figures, you know, and it would be like Fan Magazine. You would write in and fill out the coupon and say, oh gosh, I hope I get to go have a pajama party with Jane and Dolly, you know, and...
That's close to filling out the coupon for the itching powder.
Oh, it is.
Or all the things you mailed away for that your mother paid for but made you work to earn.
She did. That was, now, how old was I? I was only about 8 or 9. I was quite an active person, what with lying across my mother's dresser and filling out Red Ryder coupons and Red Ryder comic books at that period in my life. But I did stay home from school sick that day, and I read all about these great novelty things. I mean,
you weren't
really
sick.
sleazy.
Your hair didn't come out right.
My hair didn't come out right. You're right.
You weren't sick.
This side was like turning back, and this side was turning forward, and so. In fact, I developed, I think I was the first person who developed end papers, you know, for setting your hair. When I was 8 or 9 years old, I got the idea to use little fragments of toilet paper to soften the pin curl, you know. And I'm not certain they were using end papers in those days, maybe for like Tony Home Permanence, but that's about it. Anyway, so the Red Ryder comic book, I'm lying in bed, you know, with a cold or something, and I read about these great things like spiders and ice cubes and itching powder and hand buzzers and, you know, snakes that jump out of cans and things like that. So I made a big order and I mailed it off COD, and of course about 6 weeks later I come home from school and my mother's just distraught, and she meets me at the door and she says, I want to ask you about something. And I said, what? And she said, did you order a whole bunch of junk out of a comic book? And first I got real excited that it had arrived, you know. And then she said it cost $11, and she'd paid for it with part of her grocery money. And she says, you can have this when you can pay for it, when you can pay me back. And I said, well, how's a kid supposed to get any money, you know? And so this was probably like one of the most important experiences of my life. My mother gave me the idea. She said, well, you could do chores and errands for people in the apartment. We lived in a big old apartment house. And so I made up a big list of what I'd do, like I'd walk a dog for 10 cents, or I'd take the garbage out for a nickel, or I'd go to the corner store for 15 cents, stuff like that. And I'd come home, and I'd do all these jobs, and there were 40 apartments, and I solicited all this employment. And then I just had a drawer, and I'd throw all this change into it, and pretty soon I had like about $30.
So you bought your mother a new set of blankets because you couldn't unhook the ones you'd sewn together in the garage.
You know, you read everything, but I did.
Well, you mentioned the shows in the garage.
I took my mother's best brand new blankets, you know, like brand new Harmony House blankets from Sears or something, and you know, and I split the satin binding. I mean, I split it at the end. I'd run the rope through it. You know, it made a great curtain.
You have to have got your storefront.
You have a stage, you have to have a curtain, and I have a storefront, right?
You're probably setting up your storefront, Nellie, with the same emotion you sewed those blankets together with.
Well, you know, it's true how perfectly life, you know, circles on itself.
On that, we will take another break, Lily.
All right.
Be right back with Lily Tomlin.
So great.
Lily Tomlin is with us. We were just talking about the early days and struggling, and you had mentioned the fact that you had once been a waitress at Howard Johnson's on Broadway, 49th.
49th and Broadway.
And I said Gene Hackman had been a doorman. He had come back from the war, and he was wearing a Howard Johnson uniform, and his commanding officer went by, looked at him and said, "You're a sorry son of a bitch, Hackman."
Can you say that on television?
No. So he went in and took off the uniform, and he, Dustin Hoffman, John Voight, Duvall, all of them were starving, and you were saying, remembering seeing
Duvall,
A View from the Bridge.
Yeah, A View from the Bridge, right, with Duvall, and I saw him and John Voight for the first time in my life. And I knew I was seeing two wonderful, incredible actors.
Are you and Shirley MacLaine friends? Acquaintances?
Yes, acquaintances at least.
Did you discuss anything about Edwina Cutwater with Shirley MacLaine?
No, I didn't.
You're not surprised that I would ask you that?
No, I'm not. I don't know how to elaborate on it, but...
Have you read Out on a Limb?
I haven't. I mean, I'm acquainted with it, but I have not read it.
When you say, and you can correct me if I got this wrong, but when Lily Tomlin says, it's easier to make a woman out of a man than to make a man out of a woman.
No, it's the other way around.
Is it the other way around? Why?
Well, I was really speaking, you know, metaphorically in the culture, because masculine traits are more valued in the culture. You know, assertiveness, aggression, dynamism, or whatever these were. You know, I mean, masculine traits are more valued than feminine traits such as nurturance and compassion, and more sensitive traits, more intuitive, you know, right brain traits are less valued than left brain traits, which are masculine. And so to succeed in the culture, it's easier to adopt masculine traits, you know, become an aggressive person in the culture. You're more likely to succeed than by becoming, what's the opposite of aggressive?
Passive.
Passive than be a passive. I mean, whereas no one should really be necessarily aggressive or passive, you know, if we could strike a harmonious balance.
Would we have leaders? Would a harmonious balance give us leaders?
The real leaders teach people how to lead themselves. You know how I came up with that? Brilliant.
And those are the ones we lose first.
We do? The ones who teach us how to lead ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Whether they're politicians or they're spiritual leaders, they're movers, they're the people we lose first. They are the threats. So I don't know. I agree with you, but it also fills one with fear.
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to relate to everything you're saying.
I'm trying to relate to you, Lily. And I'm glad I've had this opportunity to try.
Thank you.
I thank you for all of me. Your movie. It's a pleasure.
My movie?
Your movie with Steve Martin, directed by Carl Reiner, co-starring Richard Libertini, Veronica
Yes.
Tennant. It's been a pleasure being with you.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
very much.
Thank you.